Wonderful. Welcome everyone to a catalyst for professional excellence in payment security. We have a great webinar in store for you. Let's go ahead and get started. First, a couple logistics. Quickly to begin, just some items. We will have about 40 to 45 minutes for the webinar. We'll have some Q&A at the end. Attendees will be muted during the whole session, so we won't be able to hear you until till the end. But please submit all of your questions via the Q&A chat section, and we'll do our best to answer them all. Some as we go through the sessions, possibly, as well as some at the end. And then if not all questions are addressed during the time frame we have, we will definitely answer them via email afterwards. So please submit the questions as we go forward. Now, with that said, let me welcome everyone and thank you so much for joining us for this webinar, which is titled The Catalyst for Professional Excellence in Payment Security. It's great to have you with us on this journey. Before we get started, I'd like to introduce myself. My name is Paul Witt. I'm Vice President of North America and Europe for CISA Information Security, and I'm going to be your host and moderator for today's webinar. In a minute, I'll introduce our other esteemed panelists. But first, let's give you a little intro about CISA as well as the ANSI National Accreditation Board very quickly before we jump into the topic of the day. Nothing too in-depth, just so you have a feeling of our level of expertise in this area and why it's important to us and why we feel it's important to impart it upon all of you. Starting with CISA, we were founded in 2006. And from the very beginning, CISA has been a forensics-driven cybersecurity company, providing payment and information security assurance services, training, products to over 2,000 customers globally. And we're very proud of that. We are one of only 4 certified global PCI forensics investigators. It's our greatest endeavor to take that global footprint that we have and associated knowledge base and feed it in every service product engagement that we enter into. We are an authorized assessor for basically anything that begins with PCI. We also do a ton of different types of testing services, SOC services, ISO, GDPR, HIPAA, et cetera, as well as data classification and discovery. So a whole myriad of payments, technology, and types of cybersecurity. So that is CISA. Now moving forward to the ANAB. So ANSI National Accreditation Board is a nonprofit organization whose focus is on accrediting organizations that certify conformity assessment bodies, such as laboratories, certification bodies, inspection bodies. ANAB's mission has always been to administer procedures and criteria for assessment programs to encourage organizations to prepare and submit such programs for accreditation. ANAB provides these services and trainings to public and private sector organizations that serve the global marketplace. ANAB assesses and accredits organizations to the international and domestic standards and requirements, including comprehensive signatory status across multilateral recognition arrangements from the International Accreditation Forum and the International Laboratory Accreditation Cooperation. ANAB helps to ensure credibility, competence, and impartiality of the organization it accredits. And by establishing and maintaining a rigorous standards through many, many years, ANAB contributes to the reliability, acceptance of products and services in the marketplace. In fact, a very, very small percentage of organizations that apply for ANAB accreditation, certificate of accreditation, successfully achieve it. So now about our fantastic panel today. First, we have Dr. Vijay Krishna, who is Vice President of Credentialing at the ANSI National Accreditation Board. He's an expert in the field of personal certification and works with countries across the globe. Dr. Krishna holds a doctoral degree from in Human and Organizational Learning, HRD, from George Washington University, where he has taught graduate level courses in leadership, organizational change, and learning in adulthood. In addition, Dr. Krishna is often quoted and has several published articles. Personally, I would recommend checking out his article, Developing Competency-Based Credentialing Framework for National Human Resources Development. A bit of a mouthful there, but that's published in the peer-reviewed International Journal of HRD Practice, Policy, and Research. It's quite insightful if you're interested in understanding the role of certification in the workforce development. So we welcome Dr. Krishna with us today. And our other panelist is Darshan Shantamurthy, who is the founder and CEO of CISA Information Security. Prior to CISA, he has worked as a cybersecurity trainer, including being an active authorized trainer for the Software Engineering Institute. He also when he started CISA, he carried forward his passion for training, and back in 2009 launched the #1 payment data security implementation certification program, which is, by the way, ANSI accredited, and we call it the CPISI training certification. It was directly based on his experience of working as a security partner, specifically for the organizations in the payment industry. And he's also an active volunteer for the popular UPI payment channel in India. And he has over the last 17 years, has helped scale CISA to be a global leader in CISA in cybersecurity solutions with about 500 employees through 10 plus countries. So that is our other panelist. Finally, the least interesting person on the panel, myself. I'm personally been in cybersecurity for over 25 years, helping to bring several cutting-edge technologies to the marketplace, including the first single sign-on product, the innovation of federation with the SAML protocol, pioneering the concept and sending the first ever OTP codes via phone and SMS, as well as being part of the initial go-to-market team for Zelle P2P payments here in the US. So now that you know the players, let's set the stage for the panel discussion. And we all know the obvious in-your-face problem that we are, that we're facing, and that's the ever-growing list of attack vectors. But we are, as you can see, I mean, every aspect of our technology world is being attacked on a daily basis. But we're also running into an overarching industry problem as a whole. And that problem is the increasing skills gap challenge that comes along with this. The attack vectors within cybersecurity are growing at such a rapid rate, and it leads to a significant skills gap challenge for different organizations. That's evidenced by the increasing number of security flaws and the global cybersecurity workforce gap, which is reaching 4 million people. The evolving nature of cyber threats are outpacing the availability of qualified professionals to help defend against them. This shortage of cybersecurity talent has direct implications for organizations like yours and their ability to prevent and respond to cyber attacks, making it essential for businesses to rethink their strategies and attract, retain, and upskill cyber talent within their organizations. As the cyber threat landscape continues to evolve, as it is every day, addressing this skills gap is crucial for organizations to effectively mitigate the risks associated with all of these expanding attack vectors. Now, on top of that, in terms of the payment industry, the skills gap challenge is also there, especially concerning the speed and complexity and the changes to compliance and government regulations, such as the payments, data security, privacy laws. It's all compounding in terms of the payments industry. The industry is facing a shortage of employees that are with the requisite skills and experience to handle the increasing amount of data generated by payment transactions. This shortage is hindering payment transformation and delivery of products and services. Employers are recognizing the need to invest in upskilling their workforce to bridge this gap and address the mismatch between the skills required and those available in the industry. In particular, the finance industry, including the payment sector, is experiencing a pronounced skills gap due to this complex nature of the financial products, regulations, technologies, privacy issues, making it essential for organizations to take proactive steps to develop talent within their ranks. And then it's a multiplicative effect, really, when in terms of payments and cybersecurity together. You have to battle both, and it's a uphill battle for both. The cybersecurity skills gap ultimately is addressing in the payments industry and is compounded, and it's getting more and more complex with every version of every regulatory aspect out there, every privacy law, whether that is a global privacy law, a local state or province. It gets very complicated very quickly, and you have to deal with this skills gap across the board. And it's no easy task. The skills gap that we're discussing is also exacerbated by one other thing, and it's a misconception surrounding the distinction between trained and certified. It's important to clarify that there is this significant difference between trained individual and a certified individual, and that difference can have a substantial impact on your business, as well as even more importantly, on your customers and their financial data and their personal information. Training focuses on learning and skills development, while certification validates formally recognizes acquired skills through a standardized assessment. Both training and certification are crucial for professional development and career advancement, but individuals often pursue training to acquire knowledge and skills. But those who actually seek certification to validate their competence in a specific field can truly be catalysts for your company's long-term success, especially battling the cybersecurity issues vectors that we deal with on a daily basis. I do not want a doctor that does not have a PhD taking a look at my symptoms, and I don't want an electrician working on my house that is not certified to do so. These are things that you don't want. And you don't want that in your cybersecurity defense either. So with that stage set, let's get to the panel and start asking them some questions and get their expert opinions on things. Let's start with you, Darshan. Would you like to share your views on the general cybersecurity landscape and the crucial need to get the right talent to address these challenges?
Sure. Thanks, Paul. The way I look at it is organizations today have multiple challenges. Yeah. So one side you have, especially in the cybersecurity world, technology, I would say being unleashed in a big way, right? So I was just talking to the CISO the other day, and we used to call it shadow IT. Now it's shadow AI, and concepts of those kinds are coming in where technology is really being adopted by organizations for good reasons, and is scaling pretty and is being useful. And obviously, cybersecurity has to enable organizations in its growth journey. That being said, today organizations are the cybersecurity teams in these organizations have to keep up to that pace of technology change, of growing threats, and so on and so forth. So there is, and one side there is this great pressure of catching up with the business and being relevant and being useful, and just not being a roadblock for business or in adoption of technology. And on the other side, security has to first understand these technologies and also be a partner with the business. And that requires what I would say continuous unlearning, learning and then relearning, right? And so this usually, so what most organizations are now, when I talk to, global chief information security officers as well as CXOs in organizations, the construct is, how do I keep my my people who've been with the company and who understand pretty much the business processes useful, or how can they contribute into the growth journey of the cyber of the organization with this technology adoption? And security obviously is an important construct in it. And that's where the as you said, close to about 3.5 to 4 million people is the skill shortage in cybersecurity, and that's what is the gap that we are actually looking at. It's a big number in that space, yeah, with the kind of people that we are trying to, and that the growing challenges, that number is only going to increase. So the role of having certified personnel is going to become extremely relevant, and to give the assurance to the leadership team of these organizations that they have people who not just trained, but also have that kind of comfort and assurance that they understand the technology and can contribute to the business, right? So that's my 2 cents, and I see that need coming in a big way, and I'm glad that we are able to contribute 2 cents in that entire direction. And largely in the payment space, we all know digital payments have been one of the fastest, one of the areas which has been getting disrupted in number of forms, and across the world, payment form factors have been changing, and starting with mobile to cross-border payments, like the way you showed. So technology is changing, and obviously we need to keep abreast with what's happening, and these certifications programs are definitely going to be extremely useful for organizations to keep up pace.
Excellent. Thanks for those thoughts and real world insight as well. Let's turn to Dr. Krishna. Vijay, can you shed some light on the current accreditation landscape for cybersecurity training programs, and what role does ANAB play in ensuring quality and standardization?
Right. Yes. Thanks, Paul. So, in terms of cybersecurity, I think today there is a new paradigm in which we think of cybersecurity. So, in the past, it was confined to a specific role. Now it's more in terms of everyone is part of cybersecurity in some sense or the other. If you have a toy that has a Wi-Fi capability, it is cyber threat in some ways. You have a refrigerator that has Wi-Fi and is connected, that could be used. So I think it's really, really important for us to look at cybersecurity in a much more holistic, integrated pattern than what we have traditionally thought about it. And across the board, the ANSI National Accreditation Board, ANAB, is involved in many, many areas of cybersecurity. More specifically, I can talk about what ANAB works with the Department of Defense in the United States under a program which used to be 8570, now it's DoD 8140. Specifically looking in terms of competence of certification bodies that provide various types of cybersecurity certifications. ANAB is also involved with many other aspects of cybersecurity products, labs, testing facility, forensic management system certification. So the whole gamut of certification from product to processes to labs to testing facilities to competence of people, which at the end of the day, you need to make sure that people have the competence to practice in the field. Just like, when you look at a hospital, the infrastructure is important, the facilities. At the same time, of critical importance is the competence of people involved in providing those medical services, from doctors to nurses to everyone who is involved at different levels of competence. So that's the part that ANSI and ANAB is very actively involved, making sure that the bodies that are involved with quality assurance and many times we don't really understand what goes behind the curtain in terms of assuring confidence in the system. Like this morning, I had one of my friends saying, "Hey, Vijay, you need to send $50 for the badminton that we play every Monday, right?" So I just use my phone and then I just sent $50, right? But there is so much that's happening to make sure that my account is secure, my bank balance is not wiped out, the money goes to the right person. So the whole framework from the security of the entire channel, from the phones to the gateways to the people, all of that is really important for people to understand that goes into, and that's the role that ANAB plays here in the United States as well as globally to make sure that especially right now we're talking about the cybersecurity certification, that these certification bodies have demonstrated competence. They are meeting standards that are both national standards as well as international standards, to make sure that people who use these systems can have confidence that things will perform as intended. And that's part of the whole paradigm that we operate.
Great. I love that, a holistic approach to certifying every tentacle of cybersecurity. I like that. So back to you, Darshan. In your experience, and we explained earlier, it's a very long experience. In your experience, how do certified training programs that are accredited, like the ones that ANAB accredits, and others, contribute to professional development of individuals within the cybersecurity field?
So one of the key things is, one from an organization standpoint and one from the individual standpoint, right? At the end of the day, it is equivalent to, purchasing a product, which is, in security world, for example, you have common criteria certification, or for that matter, you have, for your automobiles, you have an equivalent safety certification. right? So you need some kind of an assurance that this product, this personnel meets certain benchmark criteria to be because how do you gauge the in terms of individual the competence level. So these certification programs obviously are in the last 20 years of my training career has been extremely crucial for organizations to make hiring up your elevation decisions, right? So we've seen that play out in a very, very big way. I mean, as an organization, take it very seriously for our own people to be certified on and certifications are extremely important, especially in the cybersecurity space, right? Because you need, and then there is this assurance that is required for organizations when you are actually putting someone on the job. And in fact, our customers also insist that they need to be certain certified personnel before they actually take up a particular project. That's as far as organizations are concerned. Now, as an individual, if I have to go back and say to my manager or my boss or my HR leaders that, hey, I'm competent on this, how do I demonstrate it? It's your word against mine. So they could, and there is a certain standards accreditation or certification, a certification body like CISA, and which has obviously gone through an accreditation process such as the ANAB. And then corollary is the International Accreditation Forum, can give that kind of assurance that, hey, you meet that particular requirement, obviously having gone through those kinds of assessments and tests. So coming back, Paul, so certification is a very crucial portion in any technology world today, and obviously it's a make or break. For a person who's looking to grow up in their professional career, and giving and to demonstrate that competence to the external world. Yeah. Paul?
Thank you. That's great. That's great insight. Let's go back to you, Dr. Krishna. I set the stage talking about the skills gap and how massive it is, and talking about the 4 million individuals. So, what would you like to share in terms of your perspectives on how the ANSI National Accreditation Board has been helping contribute to bridging that skills gap, and any insights as to the future as how we're going to bridge that skills gap?
All right. So if you look at various types of credentials that exist currently, typically, historically, we have had degrees, diplomas, educational offerings. So they have played a really important role in terms of skill development, skilling people. But we also have this parallel universe of certification, which is an important aspect of credentialing people and making sure people have the competence to perform for the specific roles. Now, one of the beauties of the certification process is the flexibility, the nimbleness with which it operates. And it's all about competence, demonstrating competence through a third-party independent assessment. And if you look in terms of some of the research that various universities in the United States have done, including Georgetown, the non-degree credentials, the certificates and certifications are the highest growing credentials out there because of their ability to scale up. Now, if you look at a degree, typically if you go to an institute or a college, you might have 100 people, 200 people in a classroom setting. So it's very, very difficult to scale up to 100,000 students or 200,000 students. It's a real world challenge. But if you look at certifications, it provides a good alternate mechanism to scale up at numbers that we have not seen in the past. So when you look at some of the certification bodies that ANAB has accredited, they have several hundred thousands of people that they have certified. I was talking to a certification body CU, and they administered their 1 millionth test. So this is one of our accredited certification body. We have 85 plus certification bodies out there. So what makes this really crucial factor for skilling the skills gap is the scalability and the competence and the industry assurance, everything that goes to make this into a valid marker of competence at scales, and it's truly global. People can take it across the globe. You talked about the International Accreditation Forum. You talked about multilateral recognition arrangements. This is based on an ISO standard, which is the International Organization for Standardization. Standard has been adopted by, I think it's 162 member countries of ISO. So there is this global flavor in the credential that we are talking today, which makes it highly appealing to employers, because they can look at a certification and they can have confidence that the person that they're hiring has demonstrated competence. Versus if you look at a training program or a degree program, there are so many degree programs that exist in various parts of the country. So if I were to look at a degree program from a country where I don't really recognize the institution, I don't recognize whether it's accredited university or not, what is the accreditation criteria, it makes it really hard for employers to have confidence that, okay, I'm hiring someone from this particular state, from this particular university, in this particular country, versus when it makes it global, the employers can have confidence that this certification is backed by quality, it's backed by rigor. And what is critical about certification, there are lots and lots of things in making a certification meet the ANAB accreditation requirements based on a valid job analysis. So it's not just a training program and a test. The certification body has to do a valid job analysis to make sure that the competence for which people are being certified is reflected in the field. So you don't want to be in a situation where, sometimes we hear this criticism of higher education that people come out of higher ed degree programs having invested thousands and thousands of dollars, and the employers say that, these people really don't have the competence to practice in the field. So that is where certifications become important, because it is based on a valid job analysis, which has to be constantly updated. So it's not one-time job analysis. It has to be done on a regular basis to make sure that the competence that's changing in the field is being reflected in the assessment that's happening. So the assessments have to be valid, fair, psychometrically valid. So there is a lot that goes in. And to me, what makes this really appealing is it provides an alternate. So if you're looking to get into this field, as we have been talking, there is a high demand and need. You can look in terms of the body of knowledge that is required. You can acquire training anywhere. You might already have the experience. So you're not required to spend 4 years of seat time in a college. All that you need to do is acquire the competence. Some people might acquire it in a year's time. Some might take 2 years. Some might take 1 month. So it provides flexibility. It's not one size fits all. You come, you take the certification assessment, you clear it, you have a certification, and it's globally recognized. Even when you move from countries to countries, that certification is portable. And that helps to scale up the skill gap that we are talking about. So if you're talking about 4 million people or 5 million people that we need in the next year, think in terms of how long will it take a traditional university to come to that level, versus when you're talking about certification, it makes it a lot more efficient in terms of scaling. It provides people an opportunity to not have to spend so much time going to a college, sitting there. They can acquire the certification at their own time, keeping their jobs. So it's a fabulous way of helping people learn, validate their competence requirements. And again, the whole pursuit of lifelong learning, it fits into that worldview.
Great. In fact, Paul, if I can add to what Vijay
Absolutely.
was mentioning, our history, when we started off with the CPSI program, was largely to bridge this gap of competence itself, right? So one of the key things when we've been a forensic investigator for several years, a decade plus now, And one of the key things that we kind of observed when we do these investigations is many of these breaches have happened. And I'm talking a little bit about payment data security, the need for payment data security certified professionals here is because we found that there were, organizations did not really have those kinds of skills required to bridge and make sure that they are able to defend their networks, right? And in the payment data, and we all know that this has been one of the fastest growing industry across the world because of governmental push, because of technology, like what Vijay was talking about, your refrigerator making payments, your car making payments, and so on and so forth, right? So with all these technology coming in, all these, obviously it becomes a constant endeavor to for security, controls to catch up and secure all these form factors of payments. And that's why the payment data security, there is so much of vacuum in skill profession. And I'm very certain that the skill gap is what you just mentioned, 4 million skill gap. There's a huge component, a subset, which is for payment data security itself, right? And that's what is leading our endeavor is to address this particular skill gap and empower organizations with, how can they address these kinds of security threats, right? And also make sure that they are not compromised. And CPSI or the other flavors of CPSI is all oriented towards making sure that organizations are able to bridge that particular skill gap, so that at the end of the day they are able to defend their networks and do that. So just to build on that, the credentialing construct of CPSI was actually to address this particular competence gap that you just mentioned. Paul?
Excellent. Thank you. So let's take that. Let's dig a little bit deeper, Vijay. In terms of those certification processes and the programs, what is the actual training methodology? A little bit deeper. I mean, you touched upon it on a high level, but diving a little bit deeper, what are the training methodology that sets it apart and makes it more of a certification rather than just training? And what's the practical applicability of that?
Right. So when we talk of different types of credentials, like training, a degree program, a diploma program, these are more from an educational paradigm. Many years back, World Bank put out a study. They're looking at different types of credentials out there. And they talked about fundamentally these programs come from an educational paradigm versus when you look at a certification, it comes out more from an employment paradigm. So there is different in terms of focus, there is different in terms of what they're trying to accomplish. These different credentials have a purpose. It's not that one is better than the other. It's different. And as stakeholders, we need to recognize those differences, even though many times we use these words interchangeably. We say training certificate, certification, licensure, registered, accredited. So all of that we use interchangeably, but they are very unique, very different. And for that reason, ANSI actually has a separate nonprofit entity called as WorkCred. And the reason ANSI created this entity, WorkCred, was specifically to address workforce issues, to provide more structure, clarity for employers to see how these different credentials have an impact on labor market. So, Paul, to your point, what makes certification very, very unique is the focus is on assessment, an independent third-party assessment, versus if you look at a training or a degree program, you don't really need to do a job analysis. The instructor or the trainer can decide, okay, this is what I need to teach, right? The instructor can create an assessment, or maybe in some training programs, there is no assessment at all. And there is no real rigid in terms of what that assessment is doing. So training programs could be created in multiple manner. Now, ANAB does offer a program to accredit training certificates based on an American national standard called as ASTM 2659, which looks at, is the training based on developing learning objectives, assessment of learning outcomes, learning attainment. It's looking to recognize training programs, which is different from the certification program. So the certification program is an independent third-party assessment. So, if you go to a training program, the trainer can assess, can administer the test, create the test, but that would not be acceptable in a certification program. The certification would need to firewall training, learning event from the certification part of it. So anyone who is involved with the creation of the examination would not be allowed to deliver the training or vice versa. For the simple reason that we want to protect the integrity of the assessment. It has to be independent. It's what we would call it as a third-party assessment. So you can have something called as first-party assessment, where someone self-declares and say, hey, come to my training. It's a good training. Come to my education. Second is you could have a second-party assessment or a second-party conformity assessment, where you would have an entity with whom you have a relationship come and say, okay, this training or this certification is good. Now, what makes the certification that we are talking about today accredited under ISO 17024 is that it's an independent third-party assessment process, which looks in terms of how you as a certification body, CISA, is demonstrating competence. Is it structured independently? Is it structured impartially? How is it addressing recertification requirements? Because certification is time limited. You have to renew the certification. All of the rigor goes into it to make sure that the customers could be the people who are taking a certification. Customers could be employers, hiring managers, HR managers. All of them would not have to worry about the quality of the certification. They would have confidence that an accreditation body like ANAB has evaluated CISA as a certification body, looking at all of these requirements. So it's not just a paper review. There is a lot that goes into it. There is an on-site assessment. And the ANAB assessors visited CISA facilities, headquarters, and looked at all the evidence to make sure that when ANAB is putting its mark, that we have a history of 100 years. So ANAB was created, ANSI was created more than 100 years back. And three of our founding members, at the time, the Department of War, the Department of Navy, and the Department of Commerce, and six professional societies came together and created ANSI in 1918. So we work very, very closely with federal agencies, the state agencies, and all of that goes into making sure that when we put our mark behind a certification body, that certification body has demonstrated. So it's not, so you can make a claim, anyone can make a claim, we have the best certification out there, right? Now that claim has to be validated by evidence that has to be reviewed. Similarly, an individual can make a claim. I know the payment industry, I have the competence. But when they go to the certification, you as a certification body has independently verified that yes, they have the competence. So you are now putting your CISA brand, your reputation on that. And that certification, ANAB as an organization. So there is confidence. And it's not just claims, it's claims that are backed by evidence, which is legally defensible. So at any time, there is a challenge saying that, what was the criteria that someone passed or not, right? So how do you decide, someone should pass an exam or not? Now people say, oh, if you get 70, you get 75, you should be passing. Now that is part of an educational paradigm, a norm referenced assessment, right. But certifications would have a criterion reference. So all of this, there's so many details that goes into it, which makes it legally defensible. and provides confidence to the employers, to the people, that this is a certification that has labor market value.
So just because I taught my son how to cook and trained him doesn't mean you want to eat his food. That's what you're saying. I have a couple more questions, but let's take one from the audience first, and take it off track here a little bit. One of the audience questions is, can you share, and this is for both of you individually, and you may have stories or not, but can you share examples of how these types of certifications have positively impacted professionals' careers, a particular professional's career? And that could be in payments or elsewhere, but these certifications, how have they positively impacted somebody's career?
Vijay, you want to go first?
So yeah, I can go first, and Darshan, you can add too. So there is a good amount of research that different certification bodies, independent groups have done in terms of impact of accredited certifications on public safety, on career earnings, on salary. So all of that, there is good amount of research, good amount of publications out there. There is one certification that was created about 6 or 7 years back in wireless network safety. And the reason they created that certification was there was lots of deaths happening when people climbed this big towers to install 5G network. They created certification body, got accredited, and after 5 years, when they looked at the impact of the certification, they found that the number of accidents had come down by 1/3, and the number of deaths had come down to zero, which to me was very, very fulfilling, that I could tangibly see the impact of the work that certification body has done and the work that we have done. Similarly, in terms of career earnings, there is a good amount of research out there which speaks in terms of 20% premium, 30% in different types of sectors, but there is good amount. So when we say, yes, this is impacting, we are not just making a claim. There is evidence to back up this claim.
I was hoping you'd tell that story. You told me that story in DC once, and I liked it. So, Darshan?
Yeah. So just to add, I think Vijay covered it well, and just to build on top of what he said is, as far as what we have seen with CPSI certification, since we've been running for the last 15 years. One of the key things is obviously Vijay covered the depth of the accreditation process, and it's not easy. And we've been, we really worked hard for it, and we know what it takes to be accredited certification and what's the responsibility there. But having just to add in terms of how does it benefit and what has been my experience, one is I have seen individuals. Lots of hiring that is done based on these credentials, right? So credentialing is one way. I come from the time where there was, MS in cybersecurity was not that popular, right? Where the only way to actually learn something in cybersecurity was these credentials, and that's how I kind of picked about 20-25 credentials over a matter of 10 years, and that. I really value these credentials because that was the only way for me, because I come from a accounting background. And if I had to actually get into cybersecurity, the only way that I could do was to build on these credentials. And I kind of got it. And I've seen so many of my friends and colleagues have actually, that's the journey that they have taken for several years. And that's how they claim to be what they have accomplished. In terms of what we've also started seeing is for elevation, internal elevation, many organizations have started putting these credentials, right? And this has been the norm, not now, but I see a lot of emphasis on that happening, especially in the payment data security world that we have started now, wherein, especially with the growth at which the payment data is working today. I mean, cross-border payments is just staring, and the expected growth is supposed to be double digit, in terms of the cross-border payments, companies which are getting into cross-border payments, because that's a huge problem statement today. And there are so many companies, fintechs, and even legacy financial institutions who are getting into cross-border payments, trying to reduce the cost of cross-border payments, and you see a lot of growth there. And you're seeing things like cross-border. You're also looking at cryptocurrencies equivalent with central bank, with sovereign bank currencies coming in, like CBDCs, central bank digital currencies, that almost every country is having a CBDC roadmap, or if not having rolled out already. I know a couple of countries which have already rolled it out, right? Like China, for example. Now, there is this huge requirement for organizations to demonstrate that competency, and I've seen organizations now elevating the people who are able to demonstrate those kind of skills and through these credentials in their organization, so that they can do what they should be doing.
Excellent. So just two last questions for you guys. One from the audience, and then one that I have personally for you guys. So the first one, we'll do the audience one first. The question is, what distinguishes CISA's ANAB accredited certifications from other standard certifications / credentials available in the market? And I think there's two different points of view. One is Dr. Vijay's point of view, since he sees a bunch of companies and organizations come through to get accreditation. And of course, the other is Darshan's point of view from an organization that tried to get and attempted to get the accreditation and successfully did so. So let's start with you, Dr. Krishna, and kind of if you can answer that in terms of what you see from all the organizations coming through versus what distinguishes maybe CISA's accreditation.
Right. So there are different credentials out there, different certification out there with different levels of quality involved. What makes accredited certifications different is the certification body has subjected itself to an open evaluation. So, I always commend certification bodies going through the accreditation process, just like you can have an educational university that is not accredited. But then if it's accredited, students would have confidence that, yes, this is an accredited university. So, when I look at certification bodies that are accredited, they have gone through a very rigorous process demonstrating compliance. And it's a continual learning process. It's a process where organizations, when they start out, they have to understand what it takes to create a quality certification. So again, to me, at the end of the day, what provides confidence is that the certification body has been independently evaluated and has demonstrated that it's in compliance with the standard, which is a critical component in providing confidence to the stakeholders. So when you go to any facility, you want to make sure that facility has met important standards, is doing what they say they are doing, walking the talk. So that is an important aspect of accreditation.
Right. And from the first part of the question, Paul, I can probably take it is, our certification program, we service the certification programs that are existing in the marketplace, right? Obviously, as Krishna, as Vijay mentioned, there are 82 plus credentials, if I remember the number right, on ANSI. If you look at it on ANAB, and probably payment data, we may be, far and few there, right? So on the payment data security certification. So firstly, CPSI is focused on the payment data security, right? And that's the journey, and that's the skill gap that we are trying to address. The second is, the other thing that we are addressing is the implementation construct of payment data security. Now, we are not talking about assessors here, we are talking about implementers. So if I'm actually working in, say, an X organization, which is supposed to go and secure my payment data ecosystem inside my organization. Say, for example, I'm a large retailer, not going and naming anyone here, but if I'm a large retailer and I'm required and I use multiple payment channels, maybe I use I use cards, I use mobile payments, I use mobiles obviously can be NFC. I can also use the new technologies that are coming in. For example, your immediate fast payments, US faster payments construct, which is immediate payment systems, so on and so forth. So I have multiple ways in which I can get money into the organization, and there are so many heterogeneous systems which are enabling for a customer. It is just going and tapping on a point of sale terminal, but at the end of the day, there are ways in which the amount is being charged, it is getting cleared, it's getting settled. There are a whole lot of backend systems, maybe tens and hundreds of those systems, which needs to be ensured that they're all secure. And the implementation, the CPSI program, is for people who are in those and making sure those security standards, the payment data security standards, a number of them, including some of them put by the regulators. Like, for example, in some countries, India, Middle East, and or even in Europe, for a large, like SEPA, there are so many such payment nuances that needs to be considered when you're actually securing, and that is what the CPSI is structured and oriented to help build competence on. So, Paul.
Excellent, thank you. So one last question is actually a two-part question, and the first part is actually a question from the audience, which dovetails into the final question I wanted to ask you both. So the question from the audience is that without any experience in payment security, can I be eligible for certification programs to learn and build my career? So that was from the audience, but it dovetails to my final question that I was going to address to both of you. And that's give us some thoughts on how we as a community, and make no doubt about it, cybersecurity is a community in and of itself, and then payments cybersecurity is a tight community underneath that. But what as we as a community can do to help encourage people to pursue cybersecurity as a career, whether that's the youth, or whether that's people in different careers that want to change careers and help build that skills gap. How as a community can we help bridge the skills gap and encourage people to pursue cybersecurity as a career, just like the individual in the audience that asked the question, I have no experience, can I get into a certification program? So let's start with Darshan on this one, and then we'll finish with Dr. Vijay after that.
Right. So I mean, I'm a classic case of how one can actually. Yep. I'm not sure how many of the audience know that I'm actually a qualified chartered accountant who fell in love with cybersecurity. And if it wasn't for credentials, which are like ANAB accredited credentials, I wouldn't be doing cybersecurity today, right? And many of the certifications that I've accumulated over the last 20 years are all ANAB accredited certifications, whether it's my CSSP or whether it's my CISA, and so on and so forth, right? So absolutely, I think building on a credential, and one thing that I'm very fascinated about cybersecurity is you can, it's all about passion at the end of the day, and we are all getting into a stream, and of course this is nothing new only for cybersecurity, but across board today you can pick up anything that you want, as long as you're passionate about, and cybersecurity is no exception, right? And these credentials, these programs are the way to actually, kind of give you some direction. And I'm not saying that you'll become an expert, but at least gives you a direction in which you need to actually pursue and build those, the building blocks for you to even go and ask for or apply for a job, or ask for a change in your role in your existing organization. For example, I've seen many people pursuing something in that, being an IT engineer and then wanting to move to cybersecurity. And for that, one of the key things that I have always recommended, and I've seen a lot of people recommend, is pursue a certification program so that you can actually move into cybersecurity. So that's addressing the cybersecurity space. Similarly, within the cybersecurity space, there is this niche. And just we were speaking about pay and pay brackets, and how compensation kind of career boosting that these credentials can do. I can for one vouch that payment data security certificate, once you are payment data security certified, you are obviously entering a very niche skill And I don't have data to back this up, but I know out of an experience of running an organization, is that once someone is credentialed and with payment data security certification, our own HR data, our own hiring data says that it is almost 1.5 times. So just to, I'm kind of linking both the questions that you asked me in the past as well as the one which you're asking me now, is that absolutely, how people can get into cybersecurity is pursue good credentials, which you are passionate about, and then, and pursue them. And as far as payment data security is concerned, you obviously have various certifications for within the payment data security space as well. What do you want to actually pursue? And there are some which are, for example, within our payment data security itself, we have on the implementation. There are other organizations which do assessor certifications. So you can pick which one do you want, which will be more relevant in your career, which you want to pursue. And then, accordingly, take that path and get certified. And the other follow-up question was is there any prerequisite? Yes, every certification program has a prerequisite in terms of certain basic knowledge and experience. I think you should check with each of the credentials that are required for every certification, so that you can actually you have to demonstrate that. And that's one of the criteria for being ANAB approved or accredited certificates, is that there are certain experience that you need to hold in order to be eligible for even taking up some amount of credentials there. Yeah, Paul.
Great, thank you. And Dr. Krishna, you want to expound on that at all?
Yeah, just so in terms of, if you look at the whole concept of American dream, it's built on giving people a second chance or a third chance or a fourth chance, right? So it's not you have a degree and that's what you will do for the rest of your life. And the beauty of education, and I have taught MBA students and in School of Education, one of the beauty of education is whatever you learn does not matter what you learned. It could be marketing, it could be finance, it could be arts, it could be history. It's transferable. You can take that to a different field. And if you're passionate about something, transfer of knowledge is a very natural human way of learning and relearning as part of our survival instincts. So if you are new to any profession, in this case, we're talking about cybersecurity, payment professionals, if this is what you're passionate about, if you know people who are looking for, and I think, Paul, to your point, the irony is on the one side, we have all of these jobs that are not fulfilled, right? And then you have people who are looking for jobs. And somehow we need to make sure that we build those connections. So talk to people outside of what you do in terms of mentoring, counseling people, and guiding them to a career track, stack careers, or making them aware of alternate mechanisms. People come to you and say, hey, like, I want to get into this field. So instead of just talking about the traditional degrees and diplomas, there is an alternate parallel universe. So it might be good for people to look into this. And on a personal story, I was talking to my brother, and he was talking to me about this young girl who had come to him. She had real issues in terms of her coming into the United States, and it almost seemed like there was no path for her, nothing that she was destined to do. And then she got into this program where my brother is a professor, and he nurtured her. And she went all the way to get her PhD. And she has become one of the foremost material science grower in the United States. So NASA and people like, she works for, I believe, the Sandia National Lab, and she's become the top, among the top 5 materials grower in the world. So it's a beautiful story that resonates with me in terms of it's not people who don't have passion to excel. It's just people with the mentoring attitude, people who can help nurture talent and show them that these alternate paths exist, and it's going to make life really good for all of us, provide career opportunities, and fulfill the skills gap that we are looking. And if we don't do that, that's going to be a huge setback and problem for the entire world. So that's what I think.
I agree with both of you. And one of the proudest moments in my career was way back. I hired a person that was a fireman, and was, for myriad reasons, couldn't be a fireman anymore, health reasons, but had a passion for helping individuals and helping people, which is why you become a fireman, really. And he also had a passion for technology, and he ends up now he's got a CISSP, and had a long career in cybersecurity. But it started with a passion for helping people. And you both mentioned it takes a passion. And if you have the passion, you can certainly join in the cybersecurity career, whether it's in payments or any other nuance of cybersecurity. But it starts with that passion. So first, thank you so much to both of you for all of your insights and your guidance on this topic. I thought this was extremely engaging and fun for me. So I appreciate both of your efforts and time for this. I appreciate the audience and all the great questions we have. We will answer all questions via email that we didn't get to. Thank you all. Have a great rest of your day. And be safe out there. Thanks.
Thank you. Thank you.
Bye.
Bye-bye.